I do want to go to our radio station, PIMCO's Bill Gross with Tom Keene.
As well as mortgage spreads, which are through Treasury yields on an option-adjusted basis, present limited opportunity for further narrowing, and so you're really stuck with yields, Tom, and the potential at some point for those spreads to widen out again, which poses a risk. So Treasuries are not that bad as a comparison.
Well, Carol Massar and all of Bloomberg Television, good morning. With us, of course, Bill Gross from PIMCO. We've been discussing a sterling year, a Sharpe ratio over 3, which is, folks, that's like to die for, is how you would put that. Bill, you're waxing philosophical here. Rage against the conclusion, if you wish. Act 5, Scene 5, out, brief candor. Have you ever been gloomier?
Oh, of course I have. 12 months ago, with the Lehman and the AIG crisis, was a gloomy period for the markets. But I'm up in spirits. It's just that during those midnight hours when you wake up and you wonder where you're going, so to speak, when you're 65 years old.
You need a sustainable nominal GDP over 4 to 5%. When are we going to get that? Do you see it now? Third quarter, fourth quarter. Do we get first quarter, second quarter, 2010 to be the same joy?
Well, I think we've begun to see it in the third quarter and the fourth quarter. The problem is the sustainability and what economists refer to as the public-private handoff. To the extent that the public sector has added 2 or 3% to that nominal GDP number, it remains to be seen whether the private sector can take the handoff and produce a sustainable 5 to 6% nominal GDP growth, which is really required, Tom, in order to prevent deflationary, destructive debt liquidation pressures. So, that's a long-term concept, but our economy was geared for 20 to 30 years to a 6 to 7% nominal GDP. Bets were made on that from the standpoint of pension liabilities, from the standpoint of assumptions of debt and returns on that debt. And so if we only grow at 2 or 3% nominal, then things happen.
Bill, when does the Federal Reserve change policy, and is everything kind of on hold until then?
Well, I think they change when they begin to see a steady and a consistent nominal GDP growth rate of at least 4 to 5%. That awaits, I think, the end of 2010 at least, and it remains a debatable question as to whether the central bank can successfully reflate. In other words, the successful reflation depends upon the handoff, and the handoff depends upon the consumer unemployment levels and the willingness of the private sector to take the bait, so to speak, to have animal spirits that successfully reignite the economy, not just in the U.S., but on a global basis. We have our doubts here at PIMCO in terms of our new normal scenario.
Okay, you own the bond world. Now you want to own the equity world. When you and Mohamed El-Arian and your other leadership at PIMCO sit around, what'd you do? Say, okay, we're bored with bonds. Let's take over equities as well? What is going to be the PIMCO distinction when you run equity money?
Well, we have a process. We have a longer-term fundamental tops-down process based on a secular 3 to 5 year outlook. We call it these days the new normal in terms of the specific strategy. But that thinking that's generated every day in investment committee can certainly be applied to equities. Equities are simply a more extreme form of a risk asset relative to bonds, relative to treasury bills. And so, simply applying the same type of thinking can work. And we're about to try it.
Well, Bill, pretty much the easy money's been made in high yield, right? Or has it?
Yeah, I think it has. I think it has, Ken. Yields are down to the 7.5% to 8%, 8.5% area, and typically and historically, those spreads are about as tight as they can get.
So where do you look then for if you want some kind of return?
Well, you don't look for mortgages because they as well are overvalued based upon the Fed's purchase program, which will continue until March. And so that begins to knock out some of the alternatives. If high yield isn't there, if mortgages aren't there, then that really leaves you with treasuries, investment-grade corporates, and emerging markets to some extent. And yes, that's a limited menu, so to speak, but that's what we're presented with at the moment.
Bill Gross, when you talk about sovereign wealth funds, they've been quiet this year of 2009. What do you perceive they will do in 2010? Do they go on a buying binge in America?
I think they're still leery, Tom. Yeah, they're gaining some confidence that they didn't have 6 to 12 months ago, but they've been burned not just a year ago, but they were burned in 1998, and so defense is really the order of the day. I don't see them coming back in an aggressive way for some time.
Speaking of coming back, Chairman Bernanke speaking Monday at the Economic Club of New York. What do you want to hear from Chairman Bernanke on Monday, Bill Gross?
Well, what we always want to hear is an extended period of time, because that 0% interest rate, while very prohibitive in terms of its cost and earning power for savers, promotes asset appreciation on the longer end of the curve and in risk assets. So to the extent that a real economy requires a low interest rate, we want to see that continue.